What's going on, guys? So what I want to cover today is essentially the basics of using a tracking software like MyFitnessPal and how to track a sample meal. Now, we're going to start off pretty basic and then we're going to dive into some more advanced methods. So watch the whole video, bear with me, and let's have some fun. So first thing we want to do is say, okay, let's think about what is our meal? What are we going to have? Now, before we get wrapped up in, Mike, how much should I have of this? How much should I have of that? I always encourage clients to track what they're currently eating. What are you currently eating? I got to see where you're coming from before I start making recommendations based off of, more of this, less of that. So here's a sample meal for you. Let's just throw this out there. We're going to say 2 pieces of toast with some jelly and 2 eggs. Now, first thing I'm going to do is get into MyFitnessPal. So I'm going to open up the app. Then from here, I'm using very simple foods that have barcodes that I can scan. So this is a really cool feature. So I'm going to go into meal 1 for the day, and don't get caught up in my numbers here. Okay, these are my numbers, not yours. And again, this would be at the start of starting your nutrition plan. We got to figure out what you're eating. So maybe this is the breakfast that you commonly have. So I'm going to go into meal 1. I'm going to use my barcode scanner, okay? So first we're going to scan my eggs, okay? So it pops up on my screen here, 1 egg, looks right. I'm going to change it to 2 because I have 2 eggs at this meal. Check, check. Awesome, that's in meal 1.
Hey guys, so I know I said in the video that the eggs looked right, but the perfectionist in me wasn't good enough. So what actually happened was the scanned in as 1 egg, but as you can see the serving size, it says 1 egg. But if you look in the description, it says 2 eggs. So when I changed it to 2 eggs, it's actually the macronutrients for 4 eggs. So I apologize if that causes any confusion. Don't get too wrapped up in the macros for the eggs. It's more so about how we enter things, how we measure things, and not so much about my stupid error. But after editing all of this and cutting everything, this took me actually a couple hours, so I'm not gonna go back and refilm it. So don't get caught up in the eggs. All right, back to it.
Now let's say I have 2 pieces of toast at this meal. Same thing, I'm gonna go add food. Hit that handy barcode scanner, super easy. I'm gonna scan the barcode here. Perfect. And one thing you wanna remember is just kind of double check, make sure that the label on the nutrition label on the food matches up with MyFitnessPal. Matches up, okay. Again, I'm gonna have 2 slices, cool. Okay, so I've got my 2 slices of bread, 2 eggs, now the jelly. So how do we know how much jelly I put on it? Here's the simplest way to do that. What you want to do is take your jelly, and first we're going to scan it here, okay? So I'm going to go add food. I'm going to scan the barcode on here. Okay, now it shows 1 tablespoon is 1 serving, but I like to go off of grams so we can be much more accurate. Now, sometimes you're going to get lucky and you can go into serving size and there'll be an option for grams, but sometimes there's not. So what do I do here? There's no option for grams. Don't worry about it. So 1 tablespoon. Now, if I look at the label on here, we can see 1 tablespoon equals 20 grams of weight. Now this is weight. Tablespoon is volume. We're going off of weight. So what I want to do here is, let's say I have 2 tablespoons, okay? 2 tablespoons. Each tablespoon is 20 grams. Again, let's look at that label. 1 tablespoon equals 20 grams. So if I have 2 tablespoons, that's 40 grams, correct. So I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons in here. Now, instead of getting out my tablespoon, the easiest thing to do is just weigh it out. So how we do this, if anything's in a container, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place the jelly on the scale. So we've got the jelly on the scale here. Now the scale's not on. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it on with the jelly on there. You see it's at 0 grams now. It won't be there because I'm moving it around, but it's at 0 grams here. So what we wanna do is take off the lid, okay? And again, now we got to zero it back out. So we're going to tear, and that's going to display 0 grams. Okay, now remembering back, we wanted 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons was 40 grams. So what I'm going to do is if it's at 0, I need to remove 40 grams from the jelly, right? So I'm going to scoop out. I'm just going to put it on this plate here just for sake of it. Okay, that's 8 grams. We need more. It's 21 grams. $32 grams. 40 grams, right on the money. So right here, that's 2 tablespoons worth. That's 40 grams worth of jelly. Now, obviously, I would put this on my toast, not on a plate, but just for the sake of not wasting 2 pieces of bread that I'm not gonna eat, we're not plugging it in there. Okay, now that we did that meal, now let's say that we wanna get a little bit more complex with it, okay? Those are easy things to measure. We just scan barcodes, you know, slice of bread, 2 slices of bread, we weigh out the jelly. What if, for example, we wanted to have Honey Nut Cheerios for our carbohydrate source instead of the toast with jelly, but we wanted to keep it roughly at the same amount of macronutrients, most of them being from carbs. We want to keep the calories around the same. This takes a little bit of higher level math here. So looking at my meal, we've got our eggs, our bread, our jelly on there, okay? From here, I can see that we know that the eggs don't have any carbohydrates in them, but I know it's 66 grams of carbohydrates for the jelly and the bread. So I need 66 grams of carbohydrates, give or take a few. Now, this is where it gets complicated. So remember that 66 grams is what we're going for at this meal. And again, that's based off of what we decided. So I'm gonna remove those. Whoops. Okay, now we gotta get the Honey Nut Cheerios out. Bam, Honey Nut Cheerios. So again, we wanted 66 grams of carbohydrates. So I'm gonna look at the nutrition label here. Now this is one that's actually works out in our favor as being pretty simple. So if I look at the nutrition label, you're gonna see that a serving, 3/4 cup or 28 grams worth of weight equals 22 grams of carbohydrates. And we needed 66 grams of carbohydrates. So the math works in our favor here. This is a very simple one to do. Now, we know that, okay, if one serving weighs 28 grams, and that 28 grams gives us 22 grams of carbohydrates, and I need 66 grams of carbohydrates, we need to multiply that by 3, right? 22 times 3 equals 66. So, same thing we did with the jelly. First thing we're gonna do, track our food. So we're gonna hit that scanner again. Bam. Okay, it checks out. Yep, 0.8 cups equals 22 grams. Now we can check here. Okay, there's no option for grams as well, but luckily we know we need 66 grams. So that's going to be 3 servings that weigh 28 grams each. Following me? Okay, so I'm gonna log that in there. Now again, there's different macronutrients coming in here, right? So we've got a little bit more fat, obviously, than the jelly. So it's not gonna be a perfect 1-for-1 ratio, but again, we're focusing on the carbohydrates here. So what we gotta do here is we're gonna get the scale out. We got the scale here. Again, we're putting the bowl on the scale, then we're gonna zero it out. So now we have to do some math, right? We know that we needed 3 full servings to get our 66 grams of carbs. So we look at, what does a serving weigh? 28 grams. 28 grams, because I'm not good at math, 28 grams times 3 is going to be 84 grams. We're gonna pour in. 84 grams. Makes sense there. Now you might be wondering, but Mike, I don't eat my cereal dry, I put milk in there. Of course you do. So this is where we've got to learn. It's a learning process. How do we factor in different things? So looking back to that meal now, okay, bam, 2 eggs on there, Honey Nut Cheerios, we got that weighed out. Now I want to add milk, so I'm gonna grab some milk. Now me personally, because I can't handle real milk, got lactose-free milk. So again, I'm going to scan this in. Very simple, add food, bring up my scanner. Bam, okay, 1 cup. What is 1 cup? Well, that's a serving, cool. And it says it weighs 240 milliliters. Now, 240 milliliters is metric. It's also a 1-to-1 ratio from milliliters to grams. Now, you don't need to get all caught up in that. For milk, it's super easy. Go with 1 milliliter equals 1 gram. It's not perfect, but it's gonna be pretty darn close. So I know that 1 cup equals 240 grams. Now, what if, for example, I said, Mike, you don't need a whole cup. Maybe you want, I don't know, maybe you want 200 milliliters, okay, or 200 grams. That's okay, we can do that. So what I'm gonna do is looking at my serving here. So a serving, again, a serving is just a recommended portion size by the companies that make the labels. They make the food. So we know that 1 cup, 1 serving equals 240 milliliters. But what if I want 200 milliliters? Great. So let's look at that. So we've got serving size of 1 cup equals 90 calories. But I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to 1 milliliter. I'm going to change that to 200. Okay. So now I know 200 milliliters equals 76 calories, 1.8 carbs, 0 fat, 6.8 grams of protein. How am I going to do that? Easy, 200 milliliters. Again, cereal still on there. We're going to turn it on, tear it out, zero it out. Okay. It is zeroed out. Now we know we need to add 200 milliliters or 200 grams in this case. Keep going. $208. Shoot, am I gonna go in and remove 8 milliliters of milk there? No, we're not gonna remove 8 milliliters of milk because, oh shoot, I went over 200. We just go back and adjust. So I go back in, boom, switch it to 208. And that really doesn't make a big difference in this case, but you can do the same thing. Let's say you're pouring a sauce or pouring something out. You pour way more on there than you expected. You just go back and change it, and then you learn from that. You learn, oh wow, normally I put that much on there. Maybe that's a little too much. So with that, it's a learning process. We don't need to get so wrapped up in the numbers, but essentially that's how you do it, and that's how you can make adjustments with everything. You know, maybe you wanted exactly 100 grams of carbohydrates from your cereal, okay? This is where we get to the next level. So I gotta look at, okay, if I know that 28 grams in weight equals 22 grams of carbohydrate, how do I get to 100 grams of carbohydrate? A little bit of cross multiplication here, so bear with me on this one. All right, for the sake of demonstrating this, I wouldn't be doing this on paper. You should be able to do this in your head, but just to show you how it's done. So if I want 100 grams of carbohydrates from my Honey Nut Cheerios, we look at the serving size. Serving size, 28 grams of weight will give me 22 grams of carbohydrates. So 28 grams of weight will give me 22 grams of carbohydrates. We're gonna do cross multiplication here. So I want 100 grams of carbohydrates. How much does that weigh? We don't know. That's where we've got to do our little bit of math. So I'm gonna get out my calculator here because again, I'm not good at doing this stuff in my head. I'm gonna multiply 28 times 100 divided by 22 equals 127. So 127 grams of weight will give me 100 grams of carbohydrates to track into my macros. So now, what if you're sitting here saying, well, Mike, okay, I know that 127 grams of 127 grams of weight will give me 100 grams of carbohydrates for my macro tracking. But in MyFitnessPal, it doesn't give me a gram. There's not a gram option. How do I figure this out? So here it is. Again, more math. So we know that one serving, according to the label, again, the label serving is not important to you. Your serving could be anything. Maybe you're doing keto, so you're not even eating cereal. But we know that one serving is our 0.8 cups, right? Or 0.75 cups. We know that that weighs 28 grams. So how many of those 3/4 cup servings do we need to equal 127 grams? This is why we take math. So here we go. I'm gonna go into my calculator again. I need 127 grams of of weight. I'm going to divide that by a serving, so 28, and that gives me 4.53 servings. So 4.53, or we'll just say 4.5 3/4 cup servings. So 4.5, remember that. I'm gonna go back into MyFitnessPal. And I've got my serving size. Okay, it's 0.8 cups. What did I say? 4.53. Look at that. That gives me 99.7 grams of carbohydrate. Pretty darn close to 100. Now, if you're watching this, you might be very overwhelmed at this point. I get it. But me talking through all that, this is something I've been doing for years, and this is something I help all my clients, all my coaching clients learn. And it's a process. It's like anything else. You want to get proficient at something, you've got to practice it. So don't expect this stuff to make sense overnight. Don't expect to get the math overnight. And honestly, as far as the question of, well, how many grams should I be eating? How many carbs? How many proteins? How many fat? How many servings? How many this, that, and the other? It's so individual that I'm not going to give any recommendations for that stuff here. But what I highly encourage everyone to do is make your food based off of how you normally would make it, measure it out, and see where you're currently at. Track your food. Find out where you're currently at. Be honest with yourself. Don't leave out stuff. If you put butter on the toast, weigh it out. If you add butter or oil to the pan, weigh it out. It takes time, it takes practice, but every single time people are shocked at how much they actually consume when they take the time to track this. Now, full disclosure here, when I'm tracking this accurately, it truly only takes 10 to 15 minutes out of my day. And again, this video is going on 20 minutes right now, but that's because I'm talking you through it. I'm walking you through it. I'm showing you the math. I'm showing you how this works. However, when I'm doing the math, I've got foods that I commonly eat. I know what the portion size for me is. I know, okay, I need roughly this much to get this many grams based off my goals. It only takes 10 to 15 minutes out of my day. You know, between 3 meals, 1 or 2 snacks, 10 to 15 minutes out of my day. And you still might be saying, well, Mike, I don't have time for this. Fine, you don't have time for this, but you know what? This is a way that is proven through science. It also is an investment. Think of it this way. I'm investing 10 to 15 minutes a day to measure and track my food so I can eat things like Honey Nut Cheerios or Girl Scout cookies and still get towards my goals that I want to get towards. Which maybe it's getting ready for a beach vacation. Maybe it's bulking up for a weightlifting competition. Maybe it's getting ready to, I don't know, whatever your goal is, this is the investment. It's a sacrifice. We do this in so many other aspects of our life. We do what we don't want to do in the moment for the benefit down the road. So to me, taking the time out of my day to learn this stuff, to track my food, to measure things to the gram, 10 to 15 minutes out of every day is worth it when then I can eat Honey Nut Cheerios and eggs and throw in some Girl Scout cookies and still get the progress that I want to get for myself. This might sound really anal to some of you. This might sound way obsessive to some of you. That's fine. That's you. This is me. This is something that I use as a tool for not only myself, but to show clients, to teach clients that there are no bad foods. This is a discipline brings freedom scenario, where if we have the discipline to weigh these things out, we realize that we can still eat Girl Scout cookies. We can still eat cereal, bread, carbs, the foods that have been so demonized by other diet gurus and nutrition gurus that they don't have to be that way. You can still get results. You can still get where you want to get if you invest this little bit of extra time, 10, 15 minutes a day. Once you learn how to do it, it takes time, it takes effort, but I promise you it's worth it in the end. So you're not banging your head against the wall or saying, I'm never going to eat Girl Scout cookies, or I'm never going to drink wine again. Be real with yourself. You're going to want to eat these things. Can you eat the whole box? You can. Should you eat the whole box? Probably not. But we can find a way to work them into a plan that still involves plenty of healthy foods. You know, it's not all about all Girl Scout cookies all the time. Don't get it twisted there. But we can figure out how to work these foods in so you can find balance, so you don't have to fear foods, so you don't have to ban specific foods. And in the end, by investing the time in this tracking, you can make food fun again.